honest. All right, boys, let's dive into it tonight. Let's start with the freshmen because I think that's kind of the exciting thing to talk about. This week, word coming out of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center that Jeremiah Smith is unguardable.
He's a beast.
That even our seasoned veteran cornerbacks, who are maybe the best in the country, are having trouble stopping this freshman one-on-one. He is the most physically ready freshman that has walked on campus at the wide receiver position since David Boston. I mean, that's saying something right there.
Yeah.
Over 20-some years, okay? And the fact that he is doing to these cornerbacks what reportedly is going on, and you have people like Emeka Egbuka, who is a projected first-round draft pick next year. You've got Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis, who were the two top wide receivers in the class last year. There is a chance. And again, I don't want to – I'm one of the people, Chris, that says we need to pull the reins back when people get excited about freshmen. But it sounds like Jeremiah Smith is for real. Is there a legitimate chance he's starting game one in the Horseshoe as a true freshman over either Carnell Tate or Brandon Ennis, Chris?
You know, it's hard to say, Eric. He is, like you said, very physically gifted, extremely talented. I will say this. Ryan Day knows that this is a must-win season. He's got to go out. He's got to put his best players on the field. And if your best player is a freshman, then by all means, play the freshman. I mean, you know, he is – every piece of film we've seen on this kid has just been outstanding. I mean, and I think there is a chance that he could jump in front of, you know, possibly a Carnell Tate. I think Brian Hartline is so high on Brandon Ennis. I don't know that he's going to jump over Ennis. But, you know, Carnell Tate, we've seen flashes, but we haven't seen it consistent. And, you know, you saw him in spring last year, and you said many of the same things that we're saying right now, though, about Jeremiah Smith.
I did.
However, he was not as physically gifted as what Jeremiah Smith is right now. As far as the actual, this kid looks like he's been in the Body by Mick program for a year already, Eric. I mean, he's a beast.
Right.
He's an athletic freak. And I said it the other day. It's like watching LeBron James when he went to the NBA. You know, so many times you see one of these guys who skips college go to the NBA and then just get physically dominated because they weren't physically, their body wasn't physically mature enough. This kid's got that physical maturity to go out there and play right now. And I think if Ryan Day and if, you know, Chip Kelly and Brian Hartline come to the consensus that, yeah, he is one of the three best players on this team, or in this group, we've got to get him out there, he's going to be starting. And I'll tell you this, even if he doesn't start, he is going to play a significant role in many games this season. I really believe we've almost got a 4 deep at the receiver position, and they're going to have to find a way to get all these guys touches.
The fastest player ever since this became a tradition when Urban Meyer instilled it in the black stripe to ever lose his black stripe 4 practices,
Yep.
and he lost his black stripe. They don't just do that, okay? No. That's legitimate. Adam, I see your question. We're going to address that next because that's a great question. JR, I'm going to come to you next. Do you think there's a legitimate shot that Jeremiah Smith is starting game number 1?
Well, I think it depends on how things go, right? I think that with Emeka Egbuka, you have him kind of operating under similar instances to how Marv was operating last year in spring ball, which, if you don't remember, essentially they started moving Marv into the slot, going back outside, sometimes into a double slot with somebody else in the slot 4 wide type of situation. And so I think it just kind of depends on what happens with the team that they're facing. If they feel like Emeka is better for the slot that game, then you might see Brandon Innes off the field, and you might see a Jeremiah Smith and a Carnell Tate, because Jeremiah Smith, because of his size and physicality, he is more of an outside receiver. Does that mean he can't play the slot? No, but when you're more of something and you have as much talent as you have in Ohio State's wide receiver room, you can typically, kind of stay in that spot. So I think it'll just kind of depend. Do I think it will happen game one? I don't think so, just because I do think that Brian Hartline is going to give credit to the guys that were there before him. And I know that we kind of harp on Ryan Day for it, but I've not seen anything from this coaching staff that would make me believe that they're just going to throw a freshman out there game one, just because they think, he might be a little better. I feel like this is the kind of coaching staff that starts the veterans first, unless it's a situation where somebody is that good, like Carnell Tate last year, where they gave him playing time, but he never really started. It would be out of character. Chip Kelly did start a true freshman at quarterback last year at UCLA, so maybe he changes that. But at the end of the day, I haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe this is anything more than just kind of, spring fun gossip type of stuff. Not that he won't play. I think he'll play a lot, but just the starting game one thing.
I want to go on record as saying it right now. I think this guy has the ability to have the impact as a true freshman that Maurice Clarett had.
That's high impact.
I truly believe he's got that much talent.
At the wide receiver position, though?
Well, I guess I wouldn't say. Okay, let me rephrase that.
Like relative for his position is what you mean.
Relative for his position.
Yeah.
I believe he has that kind of impact.
Fair enough.
This is a guy that could go out there and have 1,000-yard season this season. I truly believe that.
If Jeremiah can learn the offense, he starts week one. He has the skills, says Chris Smith. All right, Adam, let's pull into your – and actually, Jeremiah Yoder asks a very good question too. Adam Dowling, are you guys worried at all about the spring portal? The rumor is there is going to be crazy money thrown at guys on rosters since that Tennessee lawsuit. I am worried about the portal for attacking the depth on this roster at some positions where some guys who have been at Ohio State for 3-4 seasons and are getting passed over by the younger guys, specifically at, say, wide receiver position. I'm a little worried about some of the guys maybe on the defensive line who haven't had an opportunity to play a lot. If they don't believe that they're going to get significant playing time, I think the coaching staff is going to preach to them that it's a long season. You're all going to play. We're going to need the depth. So we don't want you to leave. But there are going to be some guys who are going to get that phone call because, let's face it, tampering, they're not going to do anything about it.
No.
They can't do anything about it. So it's going to happen. It's going to go on. And these guys are going to field phone calls, or their family's going to field phone calls from a lot of different schools in and around this country who feel like they can upgrade at a position and go and poach somebody who is not the big dog or starter at, say, Ohio State at a certain position. Specifically, I'm looking at defensive ends. I'm looking at wide receivers. I could see where maybe Dallin Hayden gets a phone call at running back, someone like that.
Probably from that very same Tennessee team who just won the lawsuit.
Maybe. Head back home, brother, right?
Let's hope not.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't want him to, but gosh, we've seen what the running back room depth-wise looks like under Tony Alford and his inability to keep guys healthy, whether that's his fault or not. That I'm just saying that was legitimately something that he struggled with the last few years. But That is a very good question, Adam Dowling, and it is a question that I think gets answered following this question from Jeremiah Yoder. Will most of the questions that we have be answered in the Buckeyes spring game? Maybe there will be more questions after the spring game. I believe that the questions that will be answered will be roster based, not necessarily starter or backup based, but more so certain positions with depth. The depth chart will be easier to look at when certain people might not be there.
Yeah.
So there is that to look into. I'll go back to you first, JR. Any worries about this roster getting poached after spring ball?
Yeah, so I did a video of this over on the Voice of College Football for Ohio State, which surprisingly got a good amount of pushback from Ohio State fans telling me I was disrespectful and a bad fan and that I was a terrible person for making the video, which so I thought, well, we talk about if guys are going to commit to our school and recruiting or not. So I was like, and these guys are older, so whatever. But I just kind of found that funny. But I went through this exercise, kind of went through every position room, and yeah, Chris is shouting it out there. I appreciate that, Chris. He was messing with me in the comments. Said, JR, I think you're lost. This isn't the videos you're normally on. But anyway, so when I went through the quarterbacks, I felt like it was probably either Aaron Nolan, Julian Sayin, I don't think so. Maybe Lincoln Kienholz, but I didn't feel like confident in either of those. I feel like one of them's probably going to leave either this spring window or the next one after the season. But the guys that when I was going through making this, felt the most concerned about were James Peoples, Jaden Ballard, Keon Grays. Those are both wide receivers. Calvin Simpson Hunt, and Jihad Carter. Those were my 5 that I seem to have the most concern on after scanning through some of their Twitter stuff and just looking at, past history of what the coaches have done and stuff like that. Maybe you can convince me, Eric, but I don't really see much to be concerned about with the defensive line. I know Kenyatta Jackson had his kind of cryptic tweet last year that was like decisions ... but I don't know. I think him and Caden Curry are both set up to be the guys after JT and Jack leave, and they'll probably see sometime this year. But I know there was that Josh Pate tweet. With the culture and everything that's going on right now, I just don't know. Like, I can't imagine we're going to lose any big starters. Can you guys?
Starters, no. I don't see us losing any starters. My concern, just like Eric said, just like you kind of reiterated, is in depth. My big concern was actually exactly who you just said there with those 2 defensive ends in Kenyatta Jackson and Curry. Those are my 2 big concerns because those are the guys that are next. Yeah, I mean, obviously the wide receiver room. I guess one of the bad parts about having a room full of 5 stars is that if they don't get a play, they're going to look for options. So obviously, I think we lose some depth there. Quarterback, I'm kind of with you. I think it's either Kienholz. Everything tells me that, and I hope it's not so, but Aaron Nolan concerns me because, and I don't want to step on your toes, Eric, in case this is coming up, but Julian Sayin's been balling out a lot.
Oh, it's coming up.
Yeah, so I could definitely see Aaron Nolan being a concern. And then, of course, I think we lose either Lincoln and or Nolan. And guys, I mean, I don't think Devin Brown's going anywhere if he ends up number 2 in this competition. But what happens if Will Howard ends up as the number 2 in this competition?
He gone.
He gone. And I'm just going to leave it at that, Eric, because that might just be a nice segue into our next segment.
Thank you. That's what they call that in the biz. So we'll do it. We'll take it. Yeah. Um, real fast though. Kajana Carter, I'm really worried.
Kenyatta Jackson
Kenyatta Jackson. Kajana Carter?
was a running
Holy
back.
I thought you were, I was going to say Jihad Carter for you.
I'm like having an episode tonight. Man, I need to have the roster open beside me. Kenyatta Jackson, I'm worried about because I think he can get not only, hey, come be a starter, but NIL, a big paycheck somewhere.
The kid's got big time talent, no doubt
Yeah,
about it. And
yeah.
that one probably scares me more than anybody else. Although Curry, like I said, Curry as well.
Man, I love Caden Curry, man.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I think he's really going to shine this year. I think he comes in late in games. He's fresh. He's going to dominate them tired offensive linemen.
Well, here's the thing. I think that they need to make it a point to talk to all these guys along that defensive line and let them know there's going to be a rotation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you run that risk of losing these guys.
Yeah. I am, Chris. I'm having some moments tonight, apparently. Like I said, my brain is just literally fried from this week. So you'll have to excuse me. Okay. Speaking of freshmen, that was a little side tangent we just took there. That was good. Good questions, guys. Adam Dowling, thank you very much.
Keep them coming.
Thank you very much. Yep, keep them coming. Julian Sain apparently, I made a video weeks ago about the rumor that Julian Sain was just head and shoulders in the classroom advanced for where he was coming in. And the backlash on that video that Aaron and I took for making that video was ridiculous. And I feel a little bit justified that what I heard and the source that I talked to who watched him in person saying, hey, he's legit. I feel justified because apparently he's doing so well. The coaches threw him in with the ones on Saturday and let him run with the ones. Now, you don't do that as a coach. Like, okay, so I'm going to relate this to when I coached basketball and I was running a varsity and a JV program. Every now and then, when a kid on the JV squad showed tremendous potential and earned the right to come and run with the varsity in practice, I would do that. I never did that if he wasn't physically ready to do that. Okay? You don't just throw somebody in with the ones to create controversy, okay? Or to have a fat guy on YouTube talk about it, okay? You do that if you're like, he's earned it. And number two, you want to see what it looks like. And apparently, that's where we're at with Julian Sain already. Is it possible he could be the backup quarterback this year? I'm not saying he's going to be the starter. However, our offensive coordinator, Chris, you alluded to it. Chip Kelly started a freshman at quarterback. So it's not impossible. But what I'm asking is, do you think he could earn the backup, depending on a couple things? He earns it, and maybe we lose someone to the portal. Yes or no, Chris?
I think yes. I think he's already. I'm going to be honest. I think he's already moved to number 3. I truly do. I think that's why he was taking first team reps. Chris Smith mentioned it, and you just put it up, Eric. These reps, especially right now, are valuable.
Yes, they are.
It's not to be taken lightly. If he's taking reps with the first team, he's moved up to number 3 on that depth chart, even though they may not be saying it. And there is a very good chance, specifically, should Devin Brown beat out Will Howard for that starting job, there's a very good chance that he is the number 2 guy going into the season because Will Howard transfers out if he doesn't get the starting job. If Devin Brown and Will Howard are both there, I think it's up in the air. But this I will say, and I said it earlier, you're going to field the best players that give you the best chance to win games. This is a make it or break it season for Ryan Day. Do I think he's going to be a starter? Not right away. Not this season, most likely. Could I see some scenarios where it ends up possible? Sure. But I definitely think it's very possible that he could end up number 2 on the chart.
JR.
Oh, I feel like either Will Howard or Devin Brown have to leave in order for Julian Sayin to be the backup. I feel like Ryan Day likes Devin Brown too much to not make him the backup if Will Howard is a starter, and I think that Ryan Day is too loyal to his veterans to make Julian Sayin the backup if Devin Brown is a starter. Do I think that Julian Sayin could, have a pseudo battle for the job and, kind of be right there with him? I think so. I think he probably will be the third guy if it's not Lincoln Kienholz, if Lincoln Kienholz doesn't stick around. But backup guy, again, it's kind of like with Jeremiah Smith. Like, yes, Chip Kelly has done it, but I've not seen anything from Ryan Day to make me believe that he is going to trust, especially in the season where he's going to have to save his job, where he's going to trust his backup quarterback being a freshman quarterback.
But
That's just
JR, if Howard transfers out, if he loses the number 1 job, he's going to transfer out. Do you not agree? This is his last season.
If Howard most likely, yeah.
At that point, do you see him being the number 2 guy?
I think he could beat out Kienholz, yeah. Because I think, unfortunately for Kienholz, I think that he didn't do himself any service with the bowl game, which I'm not saying is completely his fault.
Right.
Because he was also third string all year, wasn't necessarily getting the first team reps and stuff like that. But I think that Ryan Day probably saw that and thought to himself, we need to get somebody a little bit more ready to come in if anything happens injury-wise.
I gotta answer this. Larry Daniels, how glad is everyone that Honda McCord drove to Syracuse? Look at what's transpired since then. Yeah, okay. McCord had his first meeting with the media this week. Did any of you guys see that interview?
No.
Oh my gosh, is it painful? He is trying to convince himself and do the mental math that the roster at Syracuse is comparable to what he had at Ohio State. He's trying to convince himself of that. And it's so painful to watch because he knows that he knows that ain't true. It's just, woo. And the media is like feeding into it with him. And it's just like, this is not going to end well for you, buddy. So this is all really good stuff, guys. Good questions. We could probably talk about this all night, but I got to end with this scenario because we need to talk about running back coach before JR leaves. You got to record tonight, right, big guy?
Nope, I'm here the whole time. We moved our show to Monday.
Oh!
Yeah, we moved it to Monday because got tournament games going on tonight, and I didn't want to try to podcast for basketball while the NCAA tournament is going on.
Oh, so. JR made my day. It's like opening up a present on Christmas morning, having JR for an extra 15 minutes. Man, get them questions ready, guys. Fire them away at JR tonight.
Sounds like overtime tonight, Eric.
Overtime, yeah. Sounds like we're doing a little NCAA overtime. So, remember back when Alabama went to a national championship? I believe Jalen Hurts was the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And things weren't going so well in the first half.
Enter Tua Tagovailoa.
And enter freshman Tua Tagovailoa. And the rest is history, right? Is there maybe in the back of your head a scenario Ryan Day saying, I want to make sure Julian Stain stays like invested enough and feels us pushing him along enough to where if the scenario were to present itself at the end of the season and either we have an injury at the quarterback position and or things aren't going well, I can pull the trigger and bring in that freshman to jumpstart this offense. That, I believe, is a possibility. And why wouldn't you entertain at least some of those thoughts looking at how that played out for Alabama back then? Just saying.
No,
Okay,
sorry.
Bobby. Calm down there, Bobby.
That was good.
Hilarious.
Yes, Eric.
That's a good one,
agree
Bobby.
That, I could definitely see Ryan Day pulling something like that. Because let's face it, if Will Howard is the starter this season, he's not the future of this team. He's a one-year guy. He's a rental. So if there's an opportunity that presents itself, and he believes that he can win with Julian Sayin, I absolutely could see him making that move.
Chris Smith bringing some thunder cannot handle Sayin the same way he handled Quinn Ewers.
That was exactly
disagree.
what I was going to say next.
I don't disagree at all.
So whenever the Saiyan stuff started coming out, that was the immediate thing that I first thought of is Ryan Day is not going to lose Julian Sayin like he lost Quinn Ewers. And so I think that he is going to prioritize Ewers over Keenholtz, most
Sayin.
likely. Or Seenholtz, sorry. Yeah, Seenholtz. Sayin. I'm having brain farts too, Eric.
It's
Chris is the
spreading.
only Saiyan one. Chris is the only Saiyan one tonight.
That's saying something too.
And I'm
Right,
the old
exactly.
guy who stroked out. So
No, but I think, there were the rumors. Well, I don't know if they were rumors or if they were confirmed that, like, Quinn Ewers didn't travel to one game. And I know Buckeye Scoop talked about at one point that, Kyle McCord, he went in for relief in a game and burned his red shirt when, like, Quinn Ewers should have gone in or something like that. And I think that's going to be kind of the biggest stuff we see is Ryan Day's most likely going to be prioritizing for Devin Brown to get in, but also Julian Sayin to get in at the end of the games and stuff like that, just to try to keep him happy. I don't know if he'll ever make it up to second on the depth chart, but I can definitely see out of all the backups, out of all the freshmen and Keenholtz, I can definitely see Julian Sayin getting the most kind of garbage time reps and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Bobby, I think you're right.
yeah,
Ewers was never
I
going to
think so.
stay anyways. I think you're probably right.
it was a money grab.
It felt like it after the fact, but I don't know. I mean, the fact that he reclassified himself and Ohio State didn't even really want that to happen kind of tells you it threw some things off in the quarterback room moving forward.
Like our recruiting.
Yeah. Jeremiah Yoder saying is the future of Ohio State football. The Buckeyes can't lose their future signal caller. All right. Well, I mean,
It's hard for us, as high as we've been on Aaron Nolan, to just throw that
yeah.
out there.
Okay. All right. I'm going to say it. I was big time Aaron Nolan fan.
Yeah.
Big time. And if you go back to last year and you watch some of the videos we made at the end of the season, I was so down on McCord that I was like, hey, Aaron Nolan can come in here and compete for the starting job.
Yeah. And we believe that.
And at the time, there was no such thing as a Julian Sayin to Ohio State. Okay, that happened after the fact. And even when he transferred and became a part of this class, I still, even after making that video, made it perfectly clear at the end of the video that I'm rooting for Aaron Nolan. And I still am. But I'm only reporting and regurgitating the information that's being fed to us that Julian Sayin is just insane. And so all you can do is react to that. And that's not me trying to down Aaron Nolan at all. I like the kid. I really want him to succeed. I want him to do good. I think he's got a skill set that can win in the Big Ten and take Ohio State to where we want to go. But facts are just facts, and apparently Sane's the guy. I don't know how else to word it. So, yes, the Buckeyes can't afford to lose whoever that's going to be. Whichever one guy is going to be the future, they can't afford to lose them. And if you follow recruiting and the way the recruiting has changed for Taven St. Clair out of Bellefontaine, they're making him out to be the second coming of Cam Newton, the way they're talking about that kid.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think they need to slow their roll a little bit there. I mean, he's got a live arm, but my gosh, I mean, guys, that kid went from like being a no name to being a 5-star can't miss second best quarterback in the country, and like fast. They made that fast.
Well, you know why he jumped that high, right?
Was it one of the camps he went to and did really well, or what's going on
No.
with that? Okay.
So Ohio State always knew about him and always really, really liked him. Apparently Ryan Day had a relationship with his father somehow previously. I don't know how. I didn't get all the details on it, but apparently he knew St. Clair's father somehow. And so St. Clair always did really, really well at Bellefontaine. Well, all of a sudden, one off season, he comes back to camp. So I guess you're right. It was part of camp. He comes back to camp, and the kid is like 6 inches taller and like 60 pounds heavier. And it's like Ryan Day looked at him and he was like, "That's my kind of kid," because he was like the exact right size for for what you want the quarterback to be at that spot. And he just keeps growing into his role and growing into being the freshman and stuff like that. And so they're talking about, like, if this kid hits the weight room the right way, and I guess Bellefontaine has a good strength and conditioning program. I don't know much about high school football, but that's what I hear, is that it's good there. And if he follows that strength and conditioning program well and follows his kind of private trainers and stuff like that well, they're saying that this could be one of the best body types of a freshman that Ohio State has seen in a long time in a freshman quarterback.
So just to clarify, JR, he went from a 3-star to 5-star because of puberty.
Basically, yes.
I wish I could go through puberty again.
I wish I gained 60 pounds and people made me a 3-star to a 5-star, but
I think
that doesn't happen when you're old.
Yeah, if I gain another 60 pounds, I'm gonna bust like a tick.